This is my largest seasonal TBR yet. I have to read on average like 22 books a month in order to actually complete this in time. Every season I do a seasonal TBR. I have a much larger physical TBR and I pull books from there to add to my seasonal TBR. My seasonal TBR kind of acts as my priority TBR, and then my monthly TBRs after I post my seasonal TBR video are all pulled from that seasonal TBR. Fall is my absolute favorite time to read, so I kind of went a little crazy. This year. The bottom of my cart this season is actually pretty unique. Like I said before, fall's my favorite season to read, so I find a lot of my favorite books in fall, and then those books just automatically have like fall vibes in my head. So the bottom of my cart is all reread. I want to make sure I read these books this fall. Like, I want to make it a priority to reread these books this fall. I love most of these books on here, so I'm gonna start with the bottom. The first 7 books I want to reread is a series. I feel like after I say the words 7 books fall time reread, I think we all know it's the Harry Potter series. I attempt to do this every year and I never am like super successful with it. I pretty much will reread the entire series every year, but I never do it chronologically. I've read it so many times now. Like, if you couldn't tell, these books are old. I've read it probably multiple times a year, every year since I was in 5th grade when I first read the book. Every year when I reread it, it's like, oh, I'll pick up like a book in January. Then all of a sudden I'm like, maybe I'll pick up the 4th book in March. And like, it's just never coherent. And I feel like fall is the time to read Harry Potter. I feel fall and winter, that is prime Harry Potter rereading time. I do have to make a quick disclaimer here. I never talk about Harry Potter on my channel. I will mention it here and there. I feel like this is the longest I've ever talked about it on my channel because I do not support J.K. Rowling. I do not like J.K. Rowling. All of these books were literally hand-me-downs from my parents. This specific copy that I'm holding in my hands was published in July of 2007. Please thrift Harry Potter books. You can find them all over the internet, all over Pango. Please thrift your Harry Potter books. But I do love Harry Potter, unfortunately, and I do want to reread these books in the fall specifically because I don't think I've ever just like sat and read them all like chronologically together at once in like a season that really makes sense for me. Normally with rereads, I'll just like choose them as I go throughout the month, but nah, like I want to make some of these rereads a priority. Then I have another series I want to reread, but there's something unique about this. I actually started reading the series this year and I've not finished it yet. I wasn't super into the series at first. I liked the first 2 books, but then I read the set of novellas, and the set of novellas is what made me get into the series and made me go, wait, I actually really care about these characters. I've just read them so far apart that I'm forgetting things. I want to just have it like all at once chronologically, and that is the Throne of Glass series. So the only books I've read in Throne of Glass so far is obviously Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and The Assassin's Blade. I still would recommend starting with Assassin's Blade. I know it's like very debated. It's very 50-50 on what you hear, but for me personally, I started with Throne of Glass I think in like February of this year, and I enjoyed it mildly, but I just didn't really care about like the characters. Like, I enjoyed it, I thought it was good, but it wasn't my favorite Sarah J. Maas. I've already read all of ACOTAR. I read the first book in Crescent City, but that is gonna be a reread way later on. I want to finish this series before I even get into that. And Crown of Midnight, same thing. I thought it was like a little more intriguing, but I still wasn't like super into it. So then people say, okay, read Assassin's Blade 3rd if you start with Throne of Glass. After I read this, I was like, oh, I care about Selena. Like, I care about this character. It does have some spoilers for the first few books, which is why people say read this 3rd. And that's why I read it 3rd, but personally, this set of novellas connected me so much more with our main character than either of the first 2 books did. I almost didn't continue on with the series until after I read this. I was just never motivated to pick up any of the other books. What I'm gonna do is reread the novella first, then go into Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. I do want to reread all these. Like I said, I'm planning on reading all these books at once. This is gonna be fun. I don't know if I want to do a full reading vlog or not on it. If you guys would like to see a Throne of Glass reading vlog, let me know. But I am excited to reread these 3 books. Our first few non-rereads are gonna be the other books in the Throne of Glass series. If you're new here, you don't know, I'm reading 60 books in 60 days in an attempt to get my physical TBR down, and I pretty much reread all of my summer TBR in those books. So that playlist will be linked down below. It's all spoiler-free reading vlogs, a few TBR videos. You could go ahead, check it out. It's really crazy. I am reading 1 book a day. It's been kind of stressful, but that's the fun of the challenge, and I did did get pretty much all of my summer TBR knocked out. Really, fall is my fantasy time, and fantasy is my favorite, so I feel like that might be why fall is my favorite time to read, just saying. Going back into rereads, my last two rereads that I have, the first one is Modern Divination. I feel bad talking about this because you guys cannot purchase this anymore. This is the indie published version of Modern Divination. They are actually now officially a published author, which is amazing, and I'm so excited. But because of the traditional publication, they're going through edits of their book. I follow everything on Instagram, you know, that's how I know. With the edits, the book will not be traditionally published until January of 2025. And because of that, you can no longer purchase the indie published version. So this is like a prized possession, but this was probably my favorite book I read last year. It's about two rival witches who both go to like Cambridge and London. There's like a force that is killing other witches, and they're amongst like normal people. So our male main character goes to our female main character's house, Rory, and he's like, Rory, we gotta get out of here. I know you don't like me, but I have like this like little cottage. We can go kind of hide out here until we figure out what's going on with magic, why there's like this random attack on magic, like what is going on, but we're not safe here. It's Forced Proximity. It is Rivals to Lovers. I love this book. I thought it was written beautifully. Last reread I have is a classic, but like hear me out. If you have not read this book, it's definitely a classic I would recommend to people who aren't super into classics. It has like that classic style of writing that's a little more flowery. Be aware of that, but if you do like romance, Wuthering Heights is for you, baby. This is the most fall book ever. I read it in like April of 2022, which I don't know why I read Wuthering Heights in April. This is such a fall book, and I just would like to reread it and get back into it. Now that I'm done with that, let's get into this pile here. So it probably doesn't look that big, but just look. So the first book I have on here, I wouldn't say it's super fall time. I kind of only put it on here because I'm really excited to read it and I want to get to it soon, so I wanted to put it on my priority TBR. And that is Past, Present, Future, which is the sequel to Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. Didn't know this was coming out until the day it was published, which is crazy because I love Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. I think it is one of the most underrated books on the internet. It's a Rachel and Solomon, it's YA. It's about two seniors who have been fighting for valedictorian their entire high school career, and then one of them gets it and the other doesn't, and that's how the book starts off. And then it goes right into 48 hours of a game of senior assassin. And whoever wins gets like a scholarship from their school. They end up teaming up because they are the two smartest people at their school, and all of a sudden all these feelings are confessed. I loved it. I thought it was done really well. I think it's a very fun, quick, easy read, and it was like a 4.5 stars. This is the sequel. I believe they are in college now. I'm not sure if it's gonna be Second Chance. I don't know what the vibes are. I know they were together at the end of that book, so I don't know what's going on with this one, but I am excited about it. That also leads me to talking about another YA that I don't currently have because it is not technically out yet, but it will be out in October and it will be added to the TBR. That is Nothing Like the Movies, which is going to be the sequel to Better Than the Movies. I'm basic, guys. I loved Better Than the Movies. What can I say? So Nothing Like the Movies is definitely like on there. Next one I have I'm a little worried about because the reviews are so mixed. People either love this book or they hate it, and I kind of fear I might be on the side of people who don't like it that much. I didn't know that when I first bought it, but then the more I looked into it, I was like, oh, like this is why you should read book backs before you buy them, Gina. And it's Say You Swear. I want to add more romance. I know I've talked about some romances here and there, but really you're gonna see very quickly here that most of this is gonna be fantasy or mystery. So Say You Swear is a football romance though, and football is a fall sport. I have literally no other justification for why this is on my fall TBR, but there it is. Then we have The Liar's Crown. One of you guys actually suggested this to me. I'm really excited about it. If you ever have any book recommendations, especially like after looking at my TBR and looking at books that you think I'd like, please leave them down below. All I know is it's an enemies to lovers fantasy romance. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. The next book on my fall TBR is going to be King of Sloth. Another one that is not like super fall-timey, but I just know I'm gonna want to get to it soon. I do like this series. I like Anna Huang's writing. Anna Huang is kind of funny to me, like, because she writes like billionaire romances, which of course billionaire romances are already a little like kind of out there, but then all of a sudden the book will be kind of going normal, like normal romance, and it's like boom, the mob. And I think they're very fun escapism romance reads. I read most of the books on my physical TBR within a year, so when I have a book that has been on 2 seasonal TBRs for the same season, that's not good. That is no good, people. That means it's been on my physical TBR for far too long. So I do have a few books that I just didn't get to read in autumn, and I really wanted wanted to read in autumn for specific reasons. So they just kind of were added to my autumn TBR this year. And the first one of those, this is what I mean, Autumn of the, I can't say this word right, so forgive me. I know how to say it. I appreciate you guys trying to correct me. Autumn of the Grimoire. I believe this is a series about like sister witches, and I know each sister gets like a different season, and this is the first one. Then I have a fantasy, like a real fantasy here, and it's an Ember in the Ashes. This has just been on my list for a while. I've been thinking about getting it for a while. I think I saw Rachel Catherine talk about it first, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was someone else. I've just heard a lot about this. I know there's like a romance in here, but it's mainly like a fantasy, like a true fantasy. But ever since these new covers came out, I've been like, yeah, I really want to get into this series now. Again, fall is just a time for fantasy. Don't know much else about this book, but I'm excited for it. Then I have another YA fantasy. I think it is Enemies to Lovers, but I don't know. Like, don't call it just looks like it might be. The Shadows Between Us. This is by the same author of Daughter of a Pirate King, and I liked that book a lot. Then I have Throne of the Fallen. This is like the spin-off series to the Kingdom of the Wicked series. I really liked Kingdom of the Wicked. I did think near the end it kind of like lacked, but the first few books were like really good. And I know people really enjoy this book. I've heard people say that they like this more than the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, so I am really excited to get into this finally. I wanted to read it last year, and then it was just so expensive, and then it was on thrift books, which is crazy because it was still like $20 everywhere else. Then I have A Broken Blade. I'm gonna make Andrew Buddy read this with me. He doesn't know that yet. Andrew's one of my best friends. He has a booktube channel too. They're all linked down below, but we bought this book together with the intention of Buddy reading it, so I am gonna force him to Buddy read this with me this fall. Then we have finally like a different genre than like everything else I've really pulled out. We have Rouge by Mona Awad. I'm scared because Mona Awad doesn't write my favorite books. I didn't like Bunny. I know it's an unpopular opinion, I didn't, but I am like interested in this. I know it's about like Hollywood beauty standards, and she writes horror, like psychological thriller books. So I'm excited. This is just like perfect for fall time. Then we have the book that has been on my physical TBR for the longest time. If I don't read it this fall, I need you guys to yell at me really hard. Since the beginning of my channel, I have said I need to read this book, and I just keep not doing it, and I don't know why, because I'm really excited by it. I'm just so intimidated by it. It's huge. This is the oldest book on my physical TBR by far. Like I said, most of these books have only been on my TBR for about a year and a half, maybe at most. This book has been on my physical TBR since 2015. It's The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I know! I love The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I know it's wacky, I know it's weird, I know some of the things in that book are really insane, but the point is for them to be insane, because you're not supposed to like any of those characters. So, you know, like, just take that with a grain of salt. This, I've heard, is just absolutely phenomenal, and I know I'm gonna like it. That's the stupid thing, is I know I'm gonna like it, but Donna Tartt's writing is so beautiful that I know I have to sit and really pay attention, and sometimes I just want to pick up a book and be like, yay! Fantasy romance! Yay! Enemies to lovers! They're kissing! Yay! And you don't have to think. I will have to think when I read this. I need to get to this like ASAP. It is insane that this is still on my physical TBR, and I don't want to unhaul it because I know I want to read it. The next book I have is The Atlas Paradox. I read The Atlas 6, I believe, at the end of last year, and I did really enjoy it. I really like Olive Blake's writing. It is a very character-focused book. There's like the underlying plot of like, oh, the 6 magicians at the magic school and blah, 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 blah. But really what I found from The Atlas 6 is it was a huge character study. And now back to the cart, people. Back to the cart. I don't know how I'm gonna pull books off of this cart. I'm gonna just start going. The first book off of this cart that is not a reread is going to be Dungeons and Drama. I got this in a blind date with a book. Really, it's a YA romance about people playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I think that's cute and fun. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but pretty much everyone that I love in my life is like really into Dungeons and Dragons. Doubt that I'm gonna have to have much knowledge for this cute little short YA romance. I just think that'll be a fun fall read. Then I have another book that has been on my TBR for far too long. Like, far too long. This was on my fall TBR last year too. It's Everyone Knows Your Mother's a Witch. I bought this at Barnes & Noble because I was with my friend Emily, and I was like, whoa, this just sounds really cool. The story starts in Germany in 1618. I do know that they have incorporated first-hand sources from the witch trials. Then I have the first book in the Shadowhunters universe. I'm gonna read it like in the universe order. This is City of Bones, so this is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. Again, I'm gonna just read the Shadowhunters universe in the Shadowhunters universe order because there's like a few different series that combine into one. And I have Dark Arise. I don't know much about this. I do know it's a fantasy romance. It says Will's life is forever changed when an old servant tells him of his destiny to fight besides the stewards, those who have sworn to protect humanity from the The Dark King. I have a few like book mutuals that I know really love this book, so I'm excited about it. The next book, I actually don't know much about it because everyone who has read this says go into it blind, and that's what I'm gonna do. It's The Veiled Kingdom. This is like having a moment, I feel like, now on Book Talk. I hope to be a part of that moment. Again, don't know much about it, just know it's a fantasy romance. Then I have a book that, again, on my fall TBR last year, a priority for this year, and one that I do want to actually get to very soon because I really want to watch this movie. I know I'm gonna like it. I know I'm gonna love this book. I know I'm gonna love this movie. I just haven't gotten to it yet, and it's kind of an old one. It's Practical Magic. I should have read this last year. I should have done it. I will say last year I was finishing up my last year of college, so it was my fall semester of my last year, and I just didn't have a ton of time for movie watching anyway, and I knew that if I read this book, I just wouldn't have time to watch the movie. I know that sounds counterintuitive because it's like, oh, if you have enough time to sit and read a book for 5 hours, you have enough time to watch a 2-hour movie, but my mind doesn't work that way. I could read books for 10 hours straight, but sitting and watching a 2-hour movie just like takes a lot of my brain storage. And I have another book that I am very excited to read. How many times am I gonna say I'm excited to read these books? They're on my TBR. I bought them. Obviously, I'm excited to read them. Another one that I am excited to read, for lack of a better word, but didn't get to last year for the same reason I didn't get to The Goldfinch, is gonna be Babel. I know this is gonna be another one that takes a lot of brain power, and I do really want to sit and focus on this because I've heard the story is very significant and important. And I have a book that I thought was new, but then I guess people are like, no, it just got republished. And when it got republished with this really pretty sprayed edges. It's Half-Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I read Jennifer L. Armentrout. I enjoyed it, but it just like wasn't my favorite thing, but I did really like her writing. It's just the plot of that book wasn't my thing. Then we have another romance, just pure romance, baby. All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I'm trying to get through most of Mariana Zapata's backlist. There are a few that I know I'm gonna skip. Like, I just know I'm gonna skip a few of them, especially ones that people don't really like. So I'm not too worried about it, but this is one that I did want to get to, and this is one of the ones that she has traditionally published. I'm not a dark romance girly. The darkest romance I can handle is by Miss Sophie Lark. It's There Are No Saints. Guys, another romance. I'm kind of slaying. I thought I didn't have as many as I do have. I do think this is technically a fantasy romance. Maybe it's like a magical realism. This is one that I actually have not heard anyone talk about. It's Do Your Worst by Rosie Danon. First of all, Oculate Archaeologist. This is gonna be a fall read. Author that I know I love, writing a fall-coded romance. You know I'm on top of that. You know I'm on top of that. Then we have a thriller moment here. I bought this last year and I was like gonna shame myself for having it on my fall TBR not reading it, but I did buy it kind of towards the end of fall anyway, so I'm gonna kind of give myself some grace on it, but I do want to get to it. It is Secrets Never Die. I got this because Barnes & Noble was doing like that thing where it's like if you purchase something from their cafe, you can get a book for $5, and this was their $5 book of the month. It's about like a child actor who grows up and he is no longer an actor, but every year him and his friends like meet in the woods to like release their secrets, whatever that means, and then all of a sudden they start coming back out and all the secrets start coming out again, and so it's like trying to figure out who's releasing the secrets. I'm assuming they're gonna be kind of dark and thrillery and spooky. I've seen people pick this up, but I don't think I've ever like seen a review from anyone I've watched. And another thriller, guys, we have The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I've never read a Riley Sager, but this is like the classic one that I've heard people really enjoy. This and Lock Every Door, so I'm excited about it. I think it's gonna be like a fun book to read. The next book I have is the second book in an interconnected standalone series. If you have read the first book, please let me know what you think of it, because I'm curious to see if I should pick up the first book before I read this. I know technically if it's an interconnected standalone, I don't have to read them in order, but my mind works that way. I would like to read books in order if I can, and that is Better Hate Than Never. Again, a romance that I put on my TBR solely because that background looks fall-timey to me. In my defense, there's like orange leaves. Then I have one that's like making its rounds. It's kind of very popular right now. It's The Heartless Hunter, or if you're in Australia, The Crimson Moth. I've heard nothing but good things about this. Do I even have to say enemies to lovers fantasy romance? Because that's what it is. You're gonna think I'm gonna get fantasy romance out. I won't. Do I get contemporary romance out? Yeah. Do I get thrillered out? Yeah. Do I get fantasy romance out? Then I promised myself once I finished The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, I could pick this book up. And guess what? I recently finished The Naturals, so I did pick up Little White Lies by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I don't love the Inheritance Games. I know it's unpopular. I don't love it, but I love The Naturals, so I clearly like her writing. It's like a mystery with debutantes, which I think is just so fun. I believe this is a duology or possibly a trilogy. For like the last 2 years, I've been like, oh, I don't want to pick this book up. I don't know how I feel about it. But then lately I've just been seeing so much praise for it. I'm like, it does sound right up my alley. Like, let me just get the stick out of my butt and read this book. And that is Light Lark. Then we have 2 romances. I guess I had more romance than I thought, guys. What can I say? The first one is The Dixon Rule. This is just one that I want to get to. This is like the book in one of the spin-off series for Off Campus. The Off Campus books aren't that good, but I love them. Then I have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, another one that I just want to get to soon. I've heard nothing but good things about this book. I've seen people give this 5 stars, and when people give a romance book 5 stars, I'm paying attention. The second shelf is almost done, y'all. We're almost up here. We're almost up here. Moving on, the next book that I have is Truly Devious. Truly Devious. I am excited about this. This is one that I keep seeing and I just never picked up, but I've heard this is like the perfect fall time mystery. It's like a YA mystery. I don't know much else about it, but I've heard people say like read this series in the fall. I have a Big Giant Scary one. I didn't know it was a Big Giant Scary when I bought it, but I've seen people rate this super highly. It's on Goodreads, like best fantasy romance of the year. It is When the Moon Hatched. I don't know much about this, but it's a fantasy romance. We finally made our way to the top shelf. The next book I have is The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary. Again, this is just a romance that I want to get to soon, so I thought what better way to get to it soon than putting it on my fall TBR. Another romance, but this one looks fall coded. And I've heard it's Gilmore Girls coded too, which just automatically makes it fall coded, and that is Maybe Meant to Be. This is by K.L. Walther. Another thriller moment, The Perfect Marriage. This is what I mean when I say I don't read thrillers often, because this book trended like 2 years ago. The next book we have is King of Battle and Blood. I read the first like 50 pages of this on my Kindle when I had Kindle Unlimited, and then I just never picked it back up because I ended up canceling Kindle Unlimited, not because I didn't love it. I loved it and I kind of want to get it back, just because I realized I didn't pick up my books from it as much because my brain really, I have really poor object permanence skills, honestly. I have Serpent and Dove. I softy enough this book because I wasn't loving it, so I kind of just want to start it over and see how I get to it. Like, I just want to see how I feel. If I still don't like it when I'm rereading it, I'm probably gonna just DNF it. Then I have Not Your Crush's Cauldron. I got this sent to me. It is like a fantasy, I wouldn't say fantasy romance, it's like a witch romance. And I have Legendborn. This has been on like 3 seasonal TBRs. Really, really high priority. Really high priority, let's just say that. Then I have a book that I actually bought recently. I've never seen anyone talk about this. It only had like 7 reviews. Very indie fantasy romance, but I'm really excited about it because I love finding books like that. It's called A Crown of Silver and Ash, and it's a fantasy romance bodyguard romance. I don't know much else. Then another one that's a priority, another one that I should have gotten to last year that I didn't, Interview with a Vampire. This is like almost a classic at this point. I really want to watch the movie. I really want to watch the show. I've heard like really good things about it. Then we have The 7-Year Slip. I know, I need to get to it. And I feel like Ashley Poston just writes the perfect fall romances. Like, she writes the perfect curl up with a coffee in a big fuzzy blanket. You're gonna understand why this is on my fall TBR very quickly. I'm not even gonna really talk about it. You again. Do I even have to tell you why this is on my fall TBR? Then we have Coraline. Again, super quick, easy. I feel like I'm gonna get through this really quickly. It's just a classic. I've actually heard, even though this book is tiny, that this book is scarier than the movie, and the movie is pretty freaky. Then I have a Kurt Vonnegut. I love Kurt Vonnegut. He's my favorite author of all time. I have his words tattooed on my body. I say this every time I talk about this man. It's God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. Don't know what this is about. Don't need to. I'm gonna read all of Kurt Vonnegut's backlist. I just want to get to another one of his books soon. Then we have American Psycho. Again, I feel like I don't need to tell you why this is on my fall TBR. This is definitely gonna be an October read. Like, almost certainly an October read. The next book I have is Billy Summers by Stephen King. I'm ready for this. I'm excited about this. I'm ecstatic. I am on the edge of my seat. I've heard this is more true crime than horror too, and I'm really intrigued by that because I like Stephen King's horror books, but I'm excited to see how he does with true crime. Then we have The Never Tilting World. I just know this is about 2 sisters who rule different parts of this world that is like tilting. Then we have a book that I was really hesitant on picking up, but then I've heard it's really funny, and if it's like a rom-com, even though it has darker themes, I can do it. But it is technically a dark romance, and that's why I was hesitant. It's Butcher and Blackbird. Then I have a book that I need gonna get to really, really soon. It's Parallel by L. O'Rourke. This is about a girl who falls asleep and has these dreams that she's falling in love with this man and it feels so real, and then she finds out they're not dreams, she's going to a parallel universe. So magical realism, again, romance. I've heard good things about it. We have If This Book Exists, You're in the Wrong Universe. I don't know much about this, but this title, this one's gonna be a little sadder, and that is why I've been putting it off. It's My Dark Vanessa. I feel like I don't have to talk too much about that. I feel like most people know what that is. Then we have a classic, a little classic moment. Again, fall is my time for classics, and this one is just so Halloween. It's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Then we have Belladonna. This is a romance with death personified. I love when death is personified in books. I think it is so fun. I think it's so smart. I think it's a very like interesting thing, and I feel like people don't do it that often. Then I have How Does It Feel? This cover looks like fall time to me, and I like the color green, so I was like, I will buy it. I need to kind of get on my impulse purchases, I'm not gonna lie. Then we have One Dark Window. I wanted to pick up this book so bad last year, but like I said, fall's my favorite time to read. I have been like itching to read this for a year. Finally, the last book on my fall TBR, is One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. Another Olivia Blake. I don't know much about this. I think this is the one with vampires, but I could be so wrong about that. Let me know 3 books that are on your fall TBR. I am so excited for fall, so excited for autumn. If you are new here and you enjoy fall content, I am going to have so many fall videos coming out because like I said, it is my all-time favorite season. If you like this video, you could go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And with that, I will see you guys all next week for our new video. Okay guys, bye!